This is the R&L Revolution Nothing Less show. Today is September 29th, 2022. This is our 121st episode. My name is Andy Z. I'm the host of the show, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. We are living through a time of conspicuous change where each week brings new developments of a magnitude that could shape or even determine the future of humanity. The past 2 weeks, no exception. The United Nations held its annual sessions in New York City, where the leaders of the countries of the world spoke from the podium to stake out their positions on the world stage. The war in Ukraine, contention between the United States and Russia and between the U.S. and China, the uprising of women in Iran, and the existential threat of climate change all were at the top of the agenda. And today's R&L Revolution Nothing Less show will address all three of these sharp fault lines. Here at the R&L show, we have felt great joy at the heroic struggle of the women of Iran, now joined by many men as it continues to grow against the brutal, misogynist Islamic Republic theocratic regime. We're going to come back to that in a moment with video and an important statement from the Revcoms, as well as from the revolutionary communists from Iran. But first, we want to talk about a very dangerous countertrend, the intensifying possibility of war, even nuclear war, between the U.S. and its imperialist rivals, Russia and China. We begin with the U.S. and Russia, Putin and Biden.
И при угрозе территориальной целостности нашей страны для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не блеф. Граждане России могут быть уверены, территориальная целостность нашей Родины, наша независимость и свобода будут обеспечены. Подчеркну это еще раз. Всеми имеющимися у нас средствами. А те, кто пытаются шантажировать нас ядерным оружием, должны знать, что роза ветров может развернуться и в их сторону.
Whoever you are, wherever you live, whatever you believe, that should make your blood run cold. Because if nations can pursue their imperial ambitions without consequences, then we put at risk everything this very institution stands for, everything. I reject the use of violence and war to conquer nations or expand borders through bloodshed. Now, it's no secret that in the contest between democracy and autocracy, the United States and I, as president, champion a vision for our world that's grounded in the values of democracy.
I have four things to say about what we've just seen. Number one, bullshit, but bullshit with consequence unimaginable. Number two, Biden's denunciation of Russia by implying that the U.S. has not and does not, quote, pursue their imperial ambitions without consequences, end quote, can only be answered with the words of the former slave and abolitionist Frederick Douglass that we have often quoted on this show, quote, "For revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without a rival," end quote. Just how revolting and barbaric these honeyed words from Biden of rejecting violence and war. Know this. Biden spoke these words after quoting and invoking the theme of Democratic U.S. President Harry Truman at the United Nations when it was founded 75 years ago. Yes, President Truman, who dropped not one, but 2 atomic bombs on Japan, not to end World War II, but to terrorize the people of the world and the United States rivals. And since those nuclear bombings, the U.S. has carried out or masterminded and funded the slaughter of at least 7 million people around the world to expand and maintain or defend its empire. Number three, Biden's framing of this as a struggle between autocracy and democracy is worse than bullshit. It is ideological poison. He is attempting to rally people here in the U.S. and internationally behind the U.S.'s brutal imperialist domination of the people of the world, This is worse than mere hypocrisy. It is a revolting pitch to Americans to reap the spoils of U.S. world domination, as well as an appeal to all who aspire to get in on that themselves. It is way past time for people to break with American chauvinism. And I'm not speaking here of the MAGA fascists with their USA, USA #1 chants. I am speaking of all the decent people who hate this fascism, but are sedating and indulging themselves with all the, quote, thank you for your service, end quote, crap, thanking the warriors of U.S. imperialism for securing the fatted lives of Americans. On today's RNL show, we are going to present a biting excerpt of a talk from the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian that slams on this. Number 4, as we wrote on our website, revcom.us, what we see in Putin's threats of nuclear war and Biden's thinly veiled retorts of the same is like two preening heavyweight boxers at a weigh-in before a big fight, with each painting his opponent as an intolerable aggressor. The reality is, however, too real, and the war in Ukraine has already exacted an enormous price in lives in Ukraine and Russia, with impact on food supply and the environment around the world, with the danger of the incalculable cost of an all-out war between the U.S. and Russia ratcheted up now to a dangerous place. But Biden is not just escalating threats and military support for Ukraine in the war with Russia. He has ramped up threats against China over Taiwan, an island that is officially recognized as a part of China. Last week on 60 Minutes, Biden provoked China by declaring that the U.S. would defend the island of Taiwan if China were to invade. This is a very big and dangerous deal. It is a major, dangerous move on the world stage. Yet once again, Biden casts all of this as a battle of autocracy versus democracy. In fact, this is a battle between different imperialist powers, the U.S., Russia, and China, over domination of the world, and one which has intensified to a whole other level over the past year. The poison of American chauvinism and the need to break with it is the subject of a brilliant, razor-sharp excerpt of a talk from Bob Avakian, which, as I said before, we will show later in today's program. But the other side, the positive side of the equation this past week, is the heroic and beautiful struggle of the women and many men of Iran that has captured our hearts and deepened our sense of internationalism. Internationalism is at the core of the revolution we are fighting for. Internationalism means the whole world comes first. Our struggle is for the emancipation of humanity all over the world. And so our first segment on today's program will be on this fierce, heroic struggle in Iran. And then later in today's show, we are going to have 2 provocative segments. First will be part 3 of my interview with Raymond Latta on the environment and how the revolution we are actively organizing for now is the only way that the scale, scope, and roots of the environmental crisis humanity faces can be ripped up, and humanity can get on the road to being fit caretakers of the earth. And then today's show concludes with a provocative segment on Bill Russell, the great basketball player, and how he approached and changed the game, and how this inspired my co-host and Sarah Taylor to think about the leadership of Bob Avakian, and especially Bob Avakian's breakthrough in developing a thoroughly and consistently scientific approach to revolution, to communism, and to the emancipation of humanity. And so with that, I want to welcome Sarah Taylor.